Welcome to session 10 of the R3 Academy for Couples.
And session number 2 of dealing with difficult emotions.
Please have your workbook handy as you'll need it for this session. As a reminder, the workbook is for your own benefit. It's your own notes, your own feelings, and your own thoughts on what you are learning.
We want you to be able to refer back to it months or even years from now and refresh your memory and reactivate these new skills that you've learned.
All righty, let's get started.
To it during this session, and also get something to drink, relax, and let's get ready to learn together. Let's start. A second tool for your toolbox that helps you get a handle on your anger or any difficult emotion is developing an awareness of the events, circumstances, and behaviors of others that trigger a strong emotional response, as you did in the events that sometimes push my buttons exercise. Now, when you get angry, it's an event or a stimulus, right, that has occurred. First, that sets off a chain reaction, if you will, in you that resulted in you getting angry. For example, you may get angry when the bus is late, when you have to wait in line at the grocery store, or when a neighbor plays his stereo too loud. Now, I want you to think about this just for a second. What are some other everyday things that can provoke your anger? There's many, right? We're all different, and there's certain things that may trigger you that don't trigger me. Maybe it could be seeing an injustice, right? Or someone taking advantage of someone else. Maybe that will be a triggering event for you that gets you upset. Many times, specific events in your present life touch on sensitive areas that have from things that maybe happened to you in the past. These sensitive areas, or red flags, if you will, usually refer to long-standing issues that can easily lead to anger. Yeah, and we call them triggers. This is when a new event reminds us, right, of a past event that was upsetting to us. Like I said, it's all different. Everybody is different because what happened to me in my childhood maybe didn't happen to you. For example, some of us may have been slow readers as children and may have been sensitive about our reading ability, right? Although we may read well now as adults, we may continue to be sensitive about this area. This sensitivity may be revealed when someone rushes us, right? When we're completing an application or just reading something. And it may trigger anger because we may feel we are being criticized or judged as we were when we were children, right? This sensitivity may also get triggered in a more direct way, such as when someone calls us slow or even stupid. Now, in addition to events experienced in the here and now, you may also recall an event from your past that made you really angry or upset. You might remember, for example, how the bus always seemed to be late before you left home for an important appointment. And just thinking about how late the bus was in the past can make you angry in the present. Another example might be when you recall a situation involving a family member who betrayed or hurt you in some way. Just remembering this situation or this family member can cause you to feel quite angry. Past hurts that were not adequately dealt with at the time can be major triggers for anger you experience in the present. Here are some events or issues that can trigger anger. Just some examples. Long waits to see your doctor, traffic, right? Who loves traffic? Crowded buses, a friend maybe joking about a sensitive topic, a friend not paying back money owed to you, being wrongly accused of something, having to clean up someone else's mess, having a messy roommate maybe, having a neighbor who plays his music too loud, being placed on hold for long periods of time on the telephone, being given wrong directions, maybe, rumors being spread about you that are not true, having money or property stolen from you. These are some events that are just everyday life events. These are just some examples that can be triggering and that can trigger a response, a memory from you from the past that in the present, it brings these emotions of anger and frustration and just, just these strong emotions. The next two tools that we're going to discuss are both preventive and immediate. Let's talk about first the emotions thermometer. Now, I'd like you to turn to page 8 in your workbook before we go into the discussion to see this emotions thermometer that we're referring to. If you notice here in the screen, the anger thermometer, we're going to use the example of anger, okay? This simple scale that you see in the screen shows you how anger can escalate from a very low level called mildly irritated, which we all get, right, to a very high level called enraged. Points in between represent different levels of anger between the two extremes of mildly irritated all the way to enraged, from 0 to 10. Now, the purpose of this emotions thermometer is to help you monitor the escalation of any emotion as it moves up the scale in any situation so you can handle your anger effectively before you can get to the point of boiling over into rage or violence. A person's anger starts at a low number, and then it rapidly moves up the scale if it is not recognized and dealt with using tools from your toolbox. There's always time if you've learned effective skills for dealing with difficult emotions to stop this emotion from escalating to a 10. So let me ask you, for you to consider, what would you consider a 10? Maybe a 10 for me is not a 10 for you, right? But just generally, maybe assaulting another person, that's a 10, right? Being arrested by the police, obviously that's a 10. Something happened that led for you to be detained or arrested, that would be considered a 10 in my view. Now, looking at this chart, now, what would be your ideal goal when you have a difficult emotion? Now, keep in mind that emotions are normal, right? As we've discussed, whatever emotion you're feeling, so it's necessary or even desirable to try to keep yourself at a 0 or a 1. With that in mind, what do you think is a realistic and desirable goal? Again, 0 or 1 is just not realistic, right? Because emotions are natural. They're part of life. We're all going to have them, right? We're not robots. So if you take actions that will keep their difficult emotions at 5 or below, that would be the most optimal, right? Around 5 or below. Perhaps with an occasional 6 or 7. Now, many times you'll naturally have a very low level of anger, right? And it's something you will be able to deal with easily, right? Your kid is acting up, you're in a phone call maybe, and your kid, they're laughing or playing loudly, and you get mildly irritated, right? By that. That's a 1 or a 2 maybe. These things happen, right? But the idea here is for you to manage your anger effectively so that it won't ever get to a point where you're out of control and cause damage to yourself or to others. Now, keep in mind that each of you might interpret the numbers on the scale a little bit differently, right? Like I mentioned, what might be a 5 for one of you or for myself could be maybe a 7 for you or somebody else. What is important, though, is for you to personalize this emotions thermometer so that you can use it to identify where you are in terms of how much your anger is escalating, right? So you can do something that will keep you at a 5 level or below. That is the goal. Here's an important question. Where is your anger created? Although your anger is triggered by an extended stimulus or event, it is created within you. This is an important realization as it helps you take responsibility for the anger you feel. And that is an important step in being able to manage your anger. Your anger is created within you. It is not caused by the external stimulus or trigger. It's important for you to remember that. The bottom line is this: the trigger happens, and you create within yourself a response of anger to that trigger. And because you create this response within you, it means that you have the power to change that response. Now, various tools for doing this are what we are talking about in this course. Now, let's talk about your toolbox for dealing with difficult emotions. We're continuing now to look more deeply at a variety of tools for dealing with difficult emotions that you can use in developing your personal toolbox. We want you to have your own tools that work for you. Okay? And it should have two types of tools, this toolbox that we're creating for you. Preventive tools that you can use regularly to lessen your anger so you don't experience it so intensely and to keep it from escalating. And also immediate tools that you can use in the heat of the moment when your anger is escalating and heating up. Some tools work both ways, preventively and immediately. And in some situations, you will want to combine two or more tools. Now, if you go to your workbook in page 11, Tools for Dealing with Difficult Emotions, you'll see on this page a list of all of the different tools you can use to deal with difficult emotions. We list all of them there. So you'll want to refer to this page in the future, both preventatively and also immediately when the emotions are present. Okay? We're going to be examining all of these tools in detail so that you can get familiar with them and to develop some experience in using them. We're going to practice some of them. This will enable you to know which tools work for you, best for you. And then they will be the ones that you put in your toolbox for dealing with difficult emotions. The purpose of your toolbox is for you to have tools that you know work for you and help you with your response to anger-provoking events at a level on the scale, preferably 5 or under, that enables you to handle those situations without damage to property, to yourself, or to others. The approach I want you to take is to try all of them and figure out what works best for you. Then the group of tools that work best for you will, at the last session of the course, become your personal toolbox for dealing with difficult emotions. Let's talk about exploring the meaning of some key emotions. Each emotion provides us specific information about something going on. We're going to look at some key feelings in more depth. Meanwhile, let's turn to page 12 of your workbook. I'll give you a couple of seconds to look at a list of what we call feeling words. Now, the first step in being able to identify what you are feeling is to have a good feeling words vocabulary. It will be beneficial to study this list to expand your feeling words vocabulary so that this will be one of your it's going to be one of your homework assignments before the next session. Now, who sees a feelings word here that you've never seen before? There's a lot of words there, right? And I want you to take the time and read them. One thing having a strong feeling words vocabulary will do for you is it gives you a better handle on what's going on. It lets you to identify or pinpoint exactly what you're feeling. Sometimes we don't even know how to express, right, what really you're feeling. And these words here are going to allow you to expand your your feeling words vocabulary so that you can have a better idea of what really you're feeling. Like I said, sometimes when you can't figure out what it is you're feeling, it can leave you feeling very uncomfortable, right? And if you can't label your feelings correctly, it makes it harder to act in an appropriate way. So it pays to have a good feeling words vocabulary. That's why this is another tool for your toolbox. When we can understand the signals that our emotions are sending us, it makes it easier for us to respond in an appropriate way. Let's look now at some key feelings and what they mean. You can refer to page 13 of your workbook. This page contains a handy reference material that you might want to come back to many times, as I mentioned earlier with the toolbox in page 11. Now, let's start with anger. Let's identify some of these key feelings, okay, and what they really mean. Let's talk about them. Let's start with anger. What anger conveys is a message that part of us feels like we are under attack. It doesn't mean that we're in actual physical danger in the present moment and that someone is about to attack us. It simply means that there is a part of us that believes that something or someone is coming after us. For example, when I get angry that a friend doesn't pick me up on time, we said 9 o'clock and it's already 10:15 and he's still not here, he's not picking up his phone, I know consciously that I'm not being attacked by my friend, right? At the same time, it's possible for part of me to believe the reason the friend is late is that they don't think I'm very important, or else they would have made the time to be there on time, right? Now, if some part of you perceives things in this way, then you'll feel like this is an attack of some sort. Right? Doesn't mean your friend is vindictive or angry at you, or doesn't. It just means that you feel that you're not worthy enough, and that may bring some feelings of anger. Now, when we get angry, we can change our mood, right? By asking ourselves the question, why might part of me be feeling under attack in this situation? Why? If you can ask this question, and you will be able to see things more clearly, and it will help lessen the anger you might be feeling. Now, can you think of a time that you felt angry and realized then or sometime later it was because you somehow felt that someone or something was attacking you? I want you to think back for just for a couple seconds. If maybe there was a time in the past that you felt under attack. We're going to talk about some other emotions now. Sadness, frustration, fear, worry, anxiety, and shame. Each of these emotions is a separate one, but it's easy for people to get them confused at times. One of the things that will help you manage your anger is to learn to distinguish times that you're actually angry versus times that you are feeling one of these other emotions. Because we can mishmash them and we can think that we're feeling angry. In reality, it's sadness or it's anxiety or it's another type of feeling. Let's start with sadness. Now, what is sadness? We feel sad whenever we feel we have lost or been disconnected from something that is important to us. Now, sadness is mostly experienced in relation to other people. We feel sad when someone we love leaves us or dies, passes away. When we also feel sad about missing out on something that is important, maybe a special event. You couldn't go to a friend's wedding or etc., and you feel sad about it, right? Because you feel like you're missing out. Another example: most people would feel sad when their dog died, right? They call a dog man's best friend. They would be losing out on the companionship of their dog. as well as missing the daily routines, of having the dog, being greeted at the door, feeding the dog, playing catch together, having the dog sleep with them on the bed, etc., etc. You all dog lovers know what I mean. When you feel sad, you can ask the question, what thing, experience, or relationship do I feel like I am losing right now? When you can answer this question, you can see things more clearly. You will be able to appreciate what you have had in the past and see what they meant to you. When this happens, much of the emotional charge will diminish and come down. It isn't that you don't want to feel emotions like sadness and anger. It's that you want to understand them so you don't feel overwhelmed. Okay? Now let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about frustration. We talked about anger and sadness. Now let's talk about frustration. We feel frustrated when things aren't going the way that we want them to. It happens to me. It happens to me, pretty regularly. Just being frustrated, right? And it's an emotion that we all experience. This is different from anger because when we feel angry, we feel like something is after us, right? Something or someone is after us. When we feel frustrated, it is because our needs aren't being met. Now, I want you to think of an example of a time that your needs weren't being met and you felt frustrated. You'll probably, garner some memories of a couple of examples, right? When your needs weren't being met and you just became really frustrated. That's what frustration is. Now let's go to the next one. Fear, worry, and anxiety. We're going to lump them all together because they're related. These are all degrees of the same emotion, right? Which is that you are worried that something will go wrong in the future. We just experienced a pandemic, a once-in-a-lifetime type of a pandemic, as an example. They had a lot of people worried and fearful and it produced anxiety, right? Exactly because you were worried that something might go wrong, that you might get sick, or a loved one might get sick, etc. And not only that, but what was going to happen with my job? I can't work now. They said I'm going to work from home. I'm being furloughed. There was so much anxiety, worry, and even fear. As an example, when we went through that pandemic. Now, when we feel worry or fear or anxiety and ask ourselves, what do I think could possibly go wrong? There's two possible outcomes to that question when you answer that question. The first one, it might be something that could really go wrong. As an example, like I said, with the pandemic, there was a possibility, a real possibility that you might get sick, right? Or such as asking a person, let's just get another example, like an everyday example. Asking somebody out on a date, right? And there's a fear that they might say no, right? Now, when you look at it this way, you can see that part of this you can control, right? Like asking them, you can control that part, right? But you can't control their response to you. So that might create a little bit of worry and angst, right? Like I said, there's some parts that you can control and some others that you cannot. And when you recognize that you can't control this and that it's not really up to you at the end of the day, you can relax and say, you know what, it's really not the end of the world. And this is going to help you manage your anxiety. Or the other option, you might see that what you are worried about isn't really a danger. Sometimes by naming what the fear is, you can recognize that it is an exaggerated reaction to something that really isn't likely to happen at all. Such as someone's fear of falling off a tall building, right? It happens very, very in few occasions, right? Or somebody, or the fear of flying. There's people that are. I have a family member that doesn't get on an airplane because he's fearful of falling off, or we're gonna crash and we're gonna die. If you look at the statistics, though, there's a better chance that you'll die in a car crash, right, than in a plane crash. But that's his worry, that's his fear, that's his anxiety. Now, let's examine this together. Yes, it's a fear, but if you hold on to the railing or stay back from the edge, then it really is highly, highly unlikely that you'll fall off the edge, right? So one way you can diminish the fear is to look at the likelihood of it happening, which is very, very, very small. Let's talk about the last one here, shame. When we feel shame, it is because part of our system believes that we have done something wrong. Often this feeling of shame is heightened by the sense that we should have known better before we made the bad choice, right? Now, when we feel shame, we should ask ourselves, what do I feel like I did wrong? Was it really wrong to do it? Now, this may not release you from the feeling of shame, but by experiencing the feeling of shame, it opens up the opportunity for you to work on forgiveness, which is an important tool that we will look at later. I want you to now go to your workbook to pages 12 and 13, the feeling words and also the meaning of some key feelings, those two pages. And I want you to, I'll give you some minutes for you to really read those pages carefully on your own. And I want you to highlight or circle the feeling words that you think you can identify with and that you can see yourself using in the future. Again, you may not recognize some of these words. If not, you can look them up. But if there's some that you identify with, and you know what, this one I think I do oftentimes get antsy, for instance, right, or frustrated, or whatever the word may be. Circle the ones that you think you might be able to use in the future. So I'm going to give you now some minutes for you to go and really read through pages 12 and 13 of your workbooks. You can begin. Let's talk now about imagining a beautiful place. This tool actually begins with some breathing to relax yourself, okay? We're going to cover deep breathing in our next session, more in detail. But first, before we go into this tool, I want you to just take a deep breath just to relax. Then I want you to allow yourself to start imagining a safe and beautiful place. Maybe it's a beautiful garden, the mountains, an open field, the beach, whatever relaxes you. Just something beautiful that you can identify with. Maybe from your childhood, maybe that one cabin that you would go to some summers, or maybe your grandparents' lake house, or whatever it may be, going to the beach as a kid, or maybe in recent memory, something that you can identify with that relaxes, that brings a smile to your face. Sometimes when I have two little girls, ages 8 and 3, and sometimes we'll just go through pictures, right? We'll just go and think back and reminisce on some of our travels and some of our trips that we've taken, and it just brings a smile to their face and to my face, just thinking we transport ourselves to eating that gelato, right? Right there in the little plaza, wherever we were at in Italy, or whatever it might be, going to the beach. Something as simple as having a beach day here in our city. Just picking up and saying, you know what, we're going to go to the beach, we're going to relax, take some snacks, and just have long walks, play in the water, and that just relaxes my family and myself. So whatever it is, that is a tool, right? This technique, it's in your workbook in page 15 and 16, by the way. It's very powerful because it can allow you to relax, right? To transport yourself somewhere else. And that can allow you to bring down your emotions, right? Again, it's in your workbook on pages 15 and 16. And I would actually like you to use this technique after class, okay? It's mostly useful as a preventive tool. And it's a wonderful and very pleasant one that you can use as often as you want. So as soon as this session is over, I want you to try to use it today. If you're thinking you're experiencing an emotion, transport yourself to that beautiful place, whatever it is. You have your happy place, as I have my own happy places, right? But imagine a beautiful place, and that will help you to relax yourself and to be able to take a deep breath and just live in the moment. let's now talk about keeping an emotions journal. Keeping an emotions journal is a tool that you may have heard of and even may have used in the past. It's useful and it's a very beneficial tool. The idea with keeping an emotions journal is that you can write down in a piece of paper your feelings of anger or disappointment or frustration or annoyance or pain or loss or any other feeling, right? Without having to clean them up in any way. You can write them out in the way that you feel them, right? As if you're letting your emotions do the talking, if you will. You can draw if you want to, or just doodle in your journal as well. Whatever it is, you can take it out on the journal. Now, whatever you write down or you draw in this emotions journal will give you a nice sense of release, and it will also give you a record of your difficult emotions that you can go back to whenever you want to understand them better. What triggered it, where you felt it, and it's a strong technique for putting you in charge of your own feelings. Now, one of the techniques that is recommended is that you already have a journal, right? But we want you to keep a separate one as your emotions journal, right? So you may already journal in your everyday life, but this is a separate one called an emotions journal. You're going to find these and other guidelines on page 17 of your workbook. I'll refer you to that page so you can get more information on an emotions journal. Now, let's just practice this tool. I'm going to give you some minutes, and I want you to get a piece of paper out and start writing down your feelings for something that happened today. Let's keep it fresh. I want you to think of something that happened today that brought about an emotion. It could have been a 1 in the emotions, thermometer. Could have been a 1 or 2, even if it was something mildly irritating. But I want you to write it down. Maybe it was a 7, right? But I want you to be genuine and transparent with yourself. This is for you. We're not gonna grade these workbooks. These are for you to keep and to refer to back to it in the future. Okay, so I want you to be transparent and honest and genuine with yourself. Were you really upset today? Were you angry? Or maybe you were really happy. That's an emotion as well. You were joyful. You got great news. Maybe you got a raise in your job, right? Or your kid, won an award at school. Whatever it is, I want you to write it down. This can be a release for you. So I'm going to give you some minutes now for you to get a piece of paper and write down. You can call this your emotions journal, the first page. And then eventually I want you to actually, if you want to actually buy a journal and just name it an emotions journal, you can do that as well. But for now, just grab a piece of paper and I want you to write down some of the emotions, what you felt. Be specific and be more than that. I want you to be honest and transparent with yourself. You can begin. The next tool we're going to talk about is talking with a friend. Finding a friend you can trust who will listen to you and keep your confidence with the information and details you share can be a very powerful tool as well. Of course, everyone has heard of this technique, right? This tool. It's nothing, earth-shattering. We all have a friend that in the past that we've shared with. And maybe all of you here have done this before, right? Now, what are some of the advantages of this tool for dealing with difficult emotions? Well, it allows you to let off some steam, right? To vent to a friend. It can make you feel closer to them, and you can also get some good ideas from your friends when you talk to them about what's going on in your life when you have these difficult emotions. Now, there are also some limitations, of this as a tool, and I want to talk about it for a couple minutes here, just so you know what you can expect. Maybe your friend's not available. You're texting him, hey, John, we need to talk, man. Let's meet up. Or Stacy, let's go get some coffee. There's a friend of mine that posted recently in social media. So like, I've texted 10 different friends of mine because I want to go out for I have a free evening. I wanted to go out for a cup of coffee with someone, and they were all busy or never answered. He's all like, I'm just gonna go by myself. Seemed that he was upset about it. So, we're not always all available, right? We have responsibilities, families, work, etc. Or maybe they just don't feel like answering the phone. So they may not always be available, right? And they might not, another point is important for you to consider is they might not always be objective. They're your friend, right? If I talk to them, they're going to be Team Alfonso. If I have an issue or a concern, I've got into a fight with somebody else and I talk to a friend about it, they're going to take my side because I'm Team Alfonso. They might not be objective, right? And they might not always be a good listener, right? That's a skill. And we teach an amazing course about relationships and a parenting course as well that we talk about this technique of just how to be a good listener. And it's a skill that you need to learn. And you might not always be a good listener. They might not always be a good listener, right? And also, they might not always be able to keep things to themselves, right? They might, post it on social media or text somebody about it or tell somebody else about it, another one of your friends. And also, it may lower their opinion of you. If it's something personal to you and you share it to them, that you made a mistake and you're dealing with that, and then maybe you feel shame and you talk to them about it, it may lower their opinion of you. Another point to consider is they might actually, it might actually rev up your anger. They might be like, you know what? I'm so upset myself. Now you've got them angry, right? So now both of you are angry about the situation. Right? Because again, they love you, they're your friend, they're your buddy, and they're in your team, they're on your side, and they're ready to fight, right? So it may not be the best thing as well. And another point is friends don't necessarily have any real expertise or know how to handle anger or any other emotion, right? You may talk to them about it, you may vent to them about it, that's fine, but their response to you, they're not experienced, they're not therapists, right? They're not in that field, so they might not give you the best advice either. So with those caveats, it's still a great tool for you to use, again, because you can let off some steam, you can get their advice, just be aware of these limitations. Now let's talk about talking with a counselor. Of course, you're familiar with this one as well, with this tool for dealing with difficult emotions. And some of you have probably experienced this as well, going to a therapist, somebody to talk to, a counselor. Now, let's talk about some of the advantages of talking with a counselor or a licensed therapist as a means with dealing with difficult emotions. Number one, they do know how to listen. They're trained professionals. And they'll listen to you. And if you think about it, when you go to see them, you're in a quiet room, in a quiet space that's confidential, and the therapist doesn't have their phone there. There's no music blaring. There's no TVs on. It's just you sitting in front of your therapist, and you have their undivided attention. They know how to listen. So that's great, right? Another good point, another advantage is they don't judge you. They don't know you. Right? They're not biased either way because they don't know you, right? And they're not going to judge you. They see a lot of people with a lot of different issues and problems, and they're not going to judge you. And also they have professional objectivity. Like I said, they're not Team Alfonso or Team whoever. They're going to be objective and they're going to be real with you, right? And you can let off steam, right? And not only that, but you can also learn some proven techniques that will help you in dealing with that. Maybe talking to your friend won't give you these techniques, but talking to a professional, even if it's somebody from your church, a minister there, whatever, even if they're not licensed, they have experience in counseling, or like I said, a licensed therapist as well. They can give you some proven techniques. Now, it does also have some limitations, right? What are those limitations if you want to use this tool? Number one, they're not always available. You can't just pick up the phone and text your therapist or your counselor, as your friends may be available, right? Because you see them maybe once every 2 weeks or once a week, and after you're done with that hour, then you'll see them, whenever your next appointment is. They're not going to be there on demand, right? It also may be costly. You know, especially if you don't have insurance or insurance doesn't cover a specific therapist, it may be costing, right? We're talking maybe sometimes up to $100, $200 or even more per hour for them to see you. Another point is they don't always find you don't always find a therapist who's right for you. Right? Maybe it's a personality thing, right? You just don't click with them. They just really don't understand where you're coming from, and they haven't lived experience what you've lived or you've experienced in the past. Maybe the way you grew up, and you just don't think they're there. There's that, you know, there's that comfort level, there's that trust, and that's fine as well. Right? So those are some limitations. But given those limitations, talking with a counselor is also a great tool that is at your disposal. Again, we're creating this toolbox, right? And we're going to customize it for you. Whatever works for you. We want you to try all of them out, right? So if you don't have a therapist, we want you to go out, and if you want to try one out and talk to somebody, it doesn't have to be like a licensed professional. Maybe somebody, like I said, from a church or a counselor somewhere that can talk to you. We want you to experience it, and if it's something that really helps you, then guess what? That's going to be in your toolbox, your customized toolbox. If it doesn't work for you, then we won't put it in the toolbox. We'll just put things that actually work for you. Maybe talking to a friend is perfectly fine for you. It works for you, and that's helped you, lower your anger. That's fine. But again, talking with a counselor is another great tool at your disposal. The next tool we're going to discuss is positive self-talk. The idea behind this tool for dealing with difficult emotions is that our inner thoughts, or what we silently say to ourselves, can have a big impact on our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. If your self-talk is negative or antagonistic, for example, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not, one more word and I'm gonna let him have it, etc. Then it's likely that your difficult feelings or emotions will intensify. And again, we don't want you to go past a 5 on the emotions thermometer, right? On the other hand, if what you say to yourself is soothing or calming, like, Alfonso, take a deep breath, or I can get through this just fine, then you're likely to feel less anger and less compelled to respond in a hostile manner. Now, if you go to the workbook, page 18, you'll see there what we call positive self-talk for dealing with difficult emotions. I'd like you to turn there now, and I want you to read the box with phrases that people say to themselves that help them decrease their difficult emotions. These are examples for you to know and to learn, so that you might be able to grab maybe some of those phrases as well. So now I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read these phrases in the box. Then I want you to come up with 1 or 2 other phrases on your own that you think will be helpful to you when you're starting to feel angry. So first of all, I want you to, like I said, read some other examples of what some other people might say to themselves, positive self-talk, and then I want you to think about, maybe some things that you can say about yourself, to yourself, so that can help you, lower your emotions. You can begin. let's now talk about communication and conflict resolution skills. These skills are very important to you being able to deal successfully with difficult emotions. It's important to be able to confront non-blamefully when you're upset with another person, so that you can express your emotion and reduce the emotional intensity of it, and so you can have a good chance of being heard by your partner, by your friend, whoever is causing this emotion, and that they respond in a cooperative way, right? We call this the XYZ confrontation, and it's a very powerful skill along with the confrontation cycle, in which you power listen any defensive response you get from your partner, so that they feel heard and are better able to hear you. And all of this enables you to move naturally into what we call the 6 steps for a win-win problem solving. Now, we're not going to go through these skills here in this class, but keep in mind that these skills work preventatively to help you deal with anger and other difficult emotions. And they work in an immediate way when you are experiencing a difficult emotion as well. The skills give you a safe way to be able to communicate about what you are experiencing, and in a safe way to be able to get cooperation and satisfaction in resolving what upset you. Again, communication and conflict resolution skills are vital. It's an important tool to help you in an immediate and also preventive way. So this is a powerful tool. Again, we're customizing your toolbox. If you believe this one is going to help you, which I believe it will, it's a very powerful tool, then we're going to put it in your toolbox. We're going to conclude this session today with a muscle relaxation exercise, which is a tool for difficult emotions to consider putting in your toolbox. I think you're going to enjoy this exercise a lot. Now, before we begin, I want you to get ready, okay? I want you to start by getting comfortable in your chairs, wherever you're sitting at. I want you to get comfortable. I want you to close your eyes if you wish. Take a moment to just relax yourself. Just clear your head. Now, begin to focus on your breathing. Take a deep breath. Hold it in for a second. Now exhale fully and completely. Again, take a deep breath. Fill your lungs and chest with air. Now release and exhale slowly. Again, one more time. Inhale slowly. Hold it there. And release. Now, while you continue to breathe deeply and fully, bring your awareness to your hands. Clench your fists very tightly. Hold that tension. Now, relax your fists, letting your fingers unfold and letting your hands completely relax. Again, clench your fists tightly. Hold and release the tension. Imagine all the tension being released from your hands down to your fingertips. Notice the difference between the tension and complete relaxation. Now I want you to bring your awareness to your arms. Curl your arms as if you're doing a bicep curl. Tense your fists, your forearms, and your biceps. Now hold the tension there. Hold it. Now release it. Let the tension in your arms unfold and your hands float back to your thighs. Feel the tension drain out of your arms. Again, I want you to curl your arms to tighten your biceps. Notice the tension there. Hold it, release. Let the tension flow out of your arms. Replace it with deep muscle relaxation. Now I want you to raise your shoulders toward your ears. Really tense your shoulders. Hold them there for a second. Now gently drop your shoulders and release all the tension. Again, let's do it again. Lift your shoulders, hold it, release. Let the tension flow from your shoulders all the way down your arms to your fingers. Notice how different your muscles feel when they're relaxed. Now I want you to bring awareness to your neck and your face. Tense all those muscles by making a face. Tense your neck, your jaw, your forehead. Hold the tension there. Now release. Let the muscles of your neck and jaw relax. Relax all the lines in your forehead. One final time. Tense all the muscles in your neck and face. Hold, release. Be aware of your muscles relaxing at the top of your head and around your eyes. Let your eyes relax in their sockets, almost as if were sinking into the back of your head. Relax your jaw and your throat. Relax all the muscles around your ears. Feel all the tension in your neck muscles release. Now, just for a few moments, I want you to scan your body for any tension, and I want you to release it. Notice how your body feels when your muscles are completely relaxed. When you are ready, you can now open your eyes. What was that experience like for you? What difference do you notice about yourself now from when we started? How does your body feel now? How about your state of mind? This is a simple muscle relaxation technique to put into your toolbox and bring out whenever you need it. You might even use this every day because it's quick and simple to do, and it relaxes your muscles in a way that feels good. And it's also a beneficial preventive tool for dealing with difficult emotions. We are done with session 2 of dealing with difficult emotions, but I do have a couple of things that I want you to work on. Some, if you want to call them homework assignments for you to do before we meet again for session 3. Number 1, I want you to monitor your difficult emotions every day using the emotions thermometer. I want you to, when you feel like you're getting upset and angry, I want you to look at that and be like, where am I at? I think I'm at a 5. I think I need to calm down, and use some of the other techniques that we've talked about, whether it's imagining a beautiful place, whether it's relaxing your muscles, etc., to lower those emotions, talking to a friend, etc. So to monitor your difficult emotions, using these emotions thermometer each day, we want you to try that. Then before you come to the next class, I want you to complete what we call the emotions log, which is another valuable tool for dealing with difficult emotions, and one that can be used preventively and also immediately when you feel an emotion. And you'll find that on page 9 of your workbook. So not only do I want you to keep track of your emotions, but I want you to log them. Okay? That's part of your homework assignment. Also, the way you use the emotions log is to circle the number from 1 to 10 that represents the highest level you reached on the emotions thermometer between this session and the next one. Okay? And I want you to write down what the event was that triggered that emotion. I want you to keep track of it. Then in the lines below, write what the different emotions cues were that you noticed. Were they physical cues? Were they behavioral cues? Were they emotional cues or cognitive or thought cues that you were able to get in touch with? This is going to be a helpful tool for you to develop as part of your dealing with difficult emotions toolbox. Okay? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to study the feeling words list on page 12 of the workbook. The goal here is to expand your vocabulary this week by as many words as you can. Keep in mind that when you label something you are feeling, it gives you increased power to deal with it effectively without negative consequences. So expanding your feeling words vocabulary is a useful tool for dealing with difficult emotions. And finally, I want you to look at and study on page 14 the anger iceberg. It represents a very important concept about how anger is often the emotion you experience. And sometimes, meanwhile, there are many other things, other emotions that lie under the surface of the water, and it is both important and empowering to get in touch with those other emotions as well. You might only see anger on top of the water, but underneath you have these other emotions as well. I think you're going to find this illustration very interesting and enlightening as well. Again, my name is Alfonso. It was a pleasure to be your instructor, your host for session 2. Until next time, goodbye.
We're covering so much important material. Good job.
One of the tools that you've learned in this session that has been really helpful to a lot of people is the anger thermometer. This is a really practical tool because it allows you to monitor the escalation of any emotion. We don't want your anger to escalate to the point of no return.
You also learned about the importance of talking to a friend or even a counselor when your emotions are difficult to control.
And finally, another important tool that was discussed is having great communication and conflict resolution skills, which builds on what you've learned in the first portion of the workshop. World-class relationships for work and home.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.